Remember how we mentioned that the values defined here in the constructor, the init method, these are called properties, because the object has this value now defined inside of it: name, school, marks, and salary. Indeed, when we create an object, then we can print rolf.salary. And what this tells us is that we're accessing a value inside the object. As soon as we want to access a function, we have to call the function by including the brackets at the end. And this is all good. But for example, let's think of the weekly salary. Let's delete that and think of the weekly salary of Rolf. We've learned in the past that functions, and therefore methods, since they are just functions inside a class, are pieces of code that do something, perform an action. However, the weekly salary method doesn't perform any actions. It just calculates a value. So it would be quite nice if we could have weekly salary like so. Rolf.weeklySalary, it's not a function anymore. Now it's just a property of the object because there's no action to do. It's not like we're telling Rolf to, go to work or do something. We're just getting a value from the object. And you can only do this when the function doesn't take any arguments other than self. Okay? If the function only takes a self argument, and the function isn't one that does things but rather just calculates a value based on self's properties, then I think this starts to make sense to do it this way. Because now you're accessing the weekly salary, and you don't care if that's calculated, and you don't care if that's just static. You know that this weekly salary is Rolf's weekly salary. And if that changes because you increase the salary, that's fine. You don't necessarily care about that. You just care that you're getting the right value out. So obviously if we do this, it's not going to work because Python is going to expect the open and closing bracket. Let's run it and I'll show you. See, now what we get is a bound method, workingstudent.weeklySalary of workingstudent.object. What this is telling us is that what we've printed out is this method. We've printed out the definition of this method. And inside it we've got, the memory address of the object and so on. If we want to do this, we have to use what's called a decorator. And this is a very popular decorator called @property. The @property decorator turns this method into something that can be used like so. Now we get 581.25, and remember we've not added the brackets. So this is a decorator. We want to look at decorators later on in the course, not just now. I just wanted to introduce this one decorator here because it's a nice way of, adding some advanced Python things as we go along the course. This is not something terribly complex. Although understanding the way decorators work is more complex, we don't need to do that just now. We're going to look at that later on. And I want you to start getting more advanced. This is how you can change a simple no argument method into a property, or something that can be accessed as if it were a property. And that's great because now we know that no action is going to arise as a result of using this property. We just know that this is a value that we're getting out. Again, I stress this, important. If you are doing an action, like connecting to a database or opening a file, or communicating with some sort of web service, or you are interacting with another object, or anything, any action, please do not use the @property decorator. Use it only when you're calculating values from the object's properties themselves.